guest today has just released her fourth album called Before the Future, and it starts with a 9-minute song, which is remarkable in its own right, especially these days. But in my opinion, it could have gone on for another 9 minutes and not felt too long at all. Such is the prowess of her, ability to write captivating, enthralling slices of life that for me are at once, nostalgic for the past and also nostalgic for the future. The entire album is just beautifully rich in these sort of unhurried harmonies and melodies, and it's kind of like peering deep into the sort of the creases of her memories to produce, an introspective meditation on, sort of moving through this, the multi stages of everyday living. And I was thinking that it could almost be sort of set to one of those sort of flickering home movies of, kind of like a sort of William Eggleston pastiche. Anyway, having probably humiliated myself with that load of self-indulgent stuff, it's probably best that I introduce my guest, which is Rebecca Schiffman. Rebecca, welcome, and thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. No, that was a lovely intro. I liked it.
Yeah, I always think I've got kind of like one thing to do, and that's to sort of write the intro. So the number of times I get it wrong. No, it's no, it's just sort of interesting. I'm always interested in sort of when I listen to sort of new music or just whatever, how it makes me sort of feel in relation to, I guess, my sort of own life, and also what's going on and out in the world as well. It's just sort of fascinating, and also I just find that there's a lot of short termism. People kind of don't spend time listening to things, but listening to a record, particularly like yours, it's just so rich when you listen to it, listen to the words, and put that with the music. How have you had time to reflect since the release?
Sure. I mean, not a lot going on. I'm not on tour or anything.
Yeah, yeah. What's
Yeah,
the how do you feel sort of post release? Because I guess sort of coming up to the release, it's quite I don't know. Could be like a raft of emotions, I guess, in the run up to it.
I feel good because I really appreciate people like you who have been listening to the album from start to finish. And
Mm,
I think this album, especially, I had a whole concept kind of, or it's not like I started with a concept, but it kind of
mm,
took shape where that song Before the Future had to be first,
mm.
Beach Vacation had to be last. They're kind of like the bread of the thematic sandwich of
Yeah.
kind of this full circle of childhood, past to present to future and back again.
Mm,
And so yeah, I've been getting great feedback. It seems like people are connecting with it, and
mm,
I think with this album I really embraced well, I'll say I took a online workshop called The Art of the Release with this wonderful online community called School of Song,
mm.
and they talked about treating the entire release as a holistic art project. In the past, I'd finish the album and kind of be annoyed that I had to promote it. Like it felt
Right.
distasteful almost. It's hard, like,
Yeah.
unless you're completely shameless, there's something very
Oh,
uncomfortable
I
about
agree.
promoting your work for a lot of artists. So I really like took my time finding collaborators to work on, my friends and friends of
Mm,
friends to work on photos, music videos, artwork, and it just felt like a more well-rounded release for me.
mm, mm.
Um I have a family member who's not well, and I was too stressed to plan a show or tour around it just in
Yeah.
case something happened. So it's been a little anticlimactic, like, all right, it came out. um,
No, it's understandable though. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
but I think because of the response, it's also helped motivate me to feel, and not just that, but also a lot of the processes I kind of figured out towards the end of just getting better at finishing songs. I feel very motivated to start work on the next one because it was nine
Mm,
years before between my third and fourth album. And I
mm.
feel like next album, hopefully, finally, will come out in like 3 years, maybe. Because
Yeah.
all my albums have these huge gaps.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the album is so. I mean, it's just sort of beautifully observational and just kind of rich in the in the words and to me it kind of. I mean, one thing that I'm really interested in is like emotional intelligence, and it kind of sort of. I mean that's a whole kind of conversation which would be interesting about teaching that to children from such an early age. But your record feels full of that, particularly sort of self-awareness and open-mindedness, and also curiosity as well, which is maybe not as much emotional intelligence, but those sort of things. And that really, like, I think kind of opens up a just like a whole other door, for what a record can mean to the listener. I mean, what it was like. I mean, self-awareness. I mean, that I think is one of the hardest things, or hardest things to, I guess, what's the word? Grow or be, but kind of be self-aware. What do you think?
It's interesting I like that you're portraying it in the positive side because I think with being self-aware comes a lot of self-consciousness, self-doubt.
Yes, true.
Um,
Yeah,
and maybe you need if you have one, you're gonna have the other.
yeah. S- that's
Uh,
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think, yeah.
yeah, like it's a journey, I think, of, coming to terms,
Mm,
fighting self-doubt but yeah, I think I just am someone who tends to overthink things and
mm.
um
Have you always been like that?
yes.
Mm,
And like we were chatting before, I
mm,
had OCD from a young age, and
mm.
I don't know if that trait, if that it comes with traits of overthinking.
Yeah,
There definitely it definitely is a burden too. Like I just remember often becoming aware of my breathing and
mm,
then panicking that I'd never be able to automatically breathe again because I had to keep
yeah,
consciously doing it, Maybe all
yes.
kids go through that, I don't know.
No,
Um,
I get you. Yeah. I think I had, I mean, just from my own point of view, I mean, what you were describing there, I think I had those. I mean, that tendency to overthink, definitely that that was a big part of my life. It was a big frustration for me that I couldn't stop doing that. I was aware that I was doing it. If I was presented with a situation, I would look at different avenues and different outcomes, sometimes to the point of like inertia. You
Totally,
know.
totally relate to that. These headphones,
Mm,
I could not decide like 10 years ago when I was like setting up a home recording system for the first
yeah,
time in forever. And I didn't start recording for 6 months because I just kept reading reviews of headphones.
of
And I
headphones.
and then I and
Yeah,
I then I
ju-
ended up just getting the Sony ones that everybody
yeah,
has, but, I'd read
yeah.
one review of, like, it not working at all, and then finally in therapy, my therapist was like, "So, okay, let's imagine the worst case scenario, you buy them and they don't work.
Yes,
Like, what's the big deal?"
absolutely right.
I'm
I
like,
could t-
"That's it."
I could totally sympathize with that. I mean, I mean that is one of the just that kind of example of choosing something. When you sort of when nowadays, I mean, everything is based on reviews. You can't help but look at them, and then I always like to sort of look at okay, there's one person that's given a 1 star, and I will look at that and think, well, that's put a spanner in the works, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's
But,
ludicrous.
this album is also inspired by meditation, which I came to, way later. I have a
Mm,
couple friends who grew up meditating because their parents meditated, and they all
yeah.
seem so chill.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came to it later, and that the start of the album, that song Before the Future, that drone is supposed to be like I was doing this meditation for grief,
Mm.
like a guided one from the Headspace app. And
Right. Yeah, yeah.
it was, I think you were supposed to picture a light, like white light or something. So
Mm,
that is sound is supposed to evoke the feeling, and in meditation, I feel like I can kind of lose all narrative for like a little bit, but then something will come back in. And what came back in was this sense memory of like a flashback to this earlier time with the light
mm,
hitting these buildings. And so I kind of use that for the jumping off of the song. So, yeah, a lot of what I write about and think about now is just my own mental process of like trying to the struggle of the overthinking and getting away from
mm.
it.
I mean, one thing that with that sort of overthinking, I think one thing that I've so coupled with that overthinking, I also had like the kind of the opposite, which was my instinct, my kind of gut instinct, and there was always this like kind of tension between the two, and sometimes what I would the decision that I would work out with my analytical side would kind of tally with my instinct. It would take twice as long, or maybe three times as long to come to that decision, but at least they would agree. But then there have been times when I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I should do that, but my instinct's telling me another way. I've got a lot better. I don't know how. I think just sort of through practice, maybe some subconscious practicing that I'm doing. That I've learned to trust my instinct much more now, rather than sitting and sort of prevaricating. And I think I'm sort of
Yeah.
quite fortunate in that now. But it's not always easy.
Um, I think I I've struggled with trusting my instinct, and I grew up in a household that was very kind of intellectually curious and all about like knowledge, but in this very,
Mm,
I've since come to understand kind of Western patriarchal way of like valuing cold intellect and like not valuing emotion or gut. Like
yeah.
that was sort of seen as very like woo,
Yes.
like
Yes. Yes. Yes.
um
Absolutely.
and I do think my curiosity comes out of that. My dad was a
Mm,
rabbi in the like in the style of never, very humble, never wanting to give his own opinion. If you ask him a question, he'll just be like, well, such and such thought this, but this other
mm,
person thought this. And I'm like, well, what do you think? And he's like, I don't know. I'm not an expert, And so he's always demystifying, like, well, people think this, you know, was in the Bible because, archaeologists discovered
mm,
like possibly this happened. Like everything was like, but maybe this happened. And so
yeah.
everything was uncertain and you could just keep going down rabbit holes. Um,
Yeah.
but there
Isn't
was
it?
nothing really spiritual. It was more like, isn't this interesting?
Yeah. So yeah, that kind of intellectual thinking. How did you sort of respond to that? I mean, that's interesting because I mean, one thing that I was going to ask you about was, sort of growing up and what, kind of formative influences you kind of remember, things that I guess have shaped, who you are today. And obviously, like for me, my, um, you know, the physical environment that you're in, as well as the people that you're surrounded with, that just have this big thing. The stuff that I carry today, I can kind of trace back to, when I was sort of 5 and 6 years old. What was the sort of experience like for you?
Um, well, I mean, I just shared a big part of it, I guess.
Mm,
But it was I had a nice childhood. It was New York City,
mm,
and that was great. Um, but yeah, my parents were not artists or musicians, but that was what they valued. They worked in information technology, and um, but they were so encouraging of art and music and would take us to
Ah, interesting.
museums and
Right.
classical concerts. They only listened to classical music. I
Yeah, yeah.
remember just like 10 years ago, I don't know, maybe it was like memory like memory loss or something, but like neither of them knew who the Beach Boys were. Um,
Right. Yeah,
it
yeah.
was something like that. I think it was the Beach Boys, and then we're like, "What about this song?" And it kinda jogged a
Mm,
memory, but like, um, yeah. But very open-minded, like,
mm.
uh, everything was about questioning. Um, no dogma.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. It's interesting, and you and I think, have a parallel from when we were very young. So, if I'm not mistaken, you played the cello.
yes.
So I started playing the cello when I was 8. That was my first sort of instrument. My dad was, uh, he was very into classical music. He was, kind of sung in church and other choirs, and he really sort of, I guess, and I don't want to sound this horrible, but he pushed me into it.
Mhm.
And I don't know why. I can't even remember why I chose the cello, but I did. And I passed all my exams, did all my kind of practical exams, did a bit of theory, hated theory, and but I did about half of them, but I passed all the practical exams, and then kind of gave it up when I was 16 or 17 in a sort of rebellious act, because
Mhm.
I couldn't reconcile the classical music with punk rock, which is what I just adored,
Yeah.
and then didn't pick it up for 30. I'll tell you that story another time about when I did pick it up again. But,
Oh, man, I definitely relate, and I have a real love-hate relationship, or
mm,
like-hate relationship with cello where,
yes, yeah,
my older brother was really into it. He was great at cello and
mm,
eventually went to Juilliard for conducting,
mm,
and I played cello
wow,
because he played cello, and cello's such a I know everyone's like, "It's such a beautiful instrument, it's such a pain, I wish I played, like, a little flute or something." Um, and yeah, I just really I wish so I love reading productivity self-help books. That's kind of my like
yeah,
guilty pleasure. I'm like always in the middle of one.
yeah,
And I just read Peak. I forget who it's by, like the guy who kind of developed the theory that Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours is based on, but that guy disavows that. He's like he's
yeah.
misrepresenting it. It's more about how you practice, not the time.
The time,
But,
right?
all about deliberate practice. I didn't know any of this growing up, so, like
Yeah,
and, I also, like here's my main kind of what I don't wanna repeat with my kid. I feel like people often told me I was talented, and so if I ever got to a point where something was hard, I was just like, "Well, that's where my talent ends." Like, I didn't
mm,
understand like, now people there's much more talk of, like, talent doesn't really factor into things that much. It's like a tiny percentage.
mm,
Most things are, like, how you practice. And
yeah,
so I would just be practicing alone because my parents worked late and just give up, and then I'd lie and say I practiced. One week,
yeah.
my cello teacher started crying because it was apparent to her that I hadn't picked up the cello since the previous week.
Oh my god,
Um,
right.
and yeah, I could muddle through and I
Mm.
played in orchestra and then I switched to upright bass in high school because I wanted to
Ah, okay.
go to the jazz band because I
Yeah,
was like, I
yeah.
want to be cool.
Oh,
Like,
amazing,
I don't know, like
amazing.
it was a different scene. And
Yeah,
I think going back to that gut and like intellectual vibe, like I was so uncomfortable with my body and like movement growing
mm,
up, still kind of am, that like the
mm,
idea of improvising was so foreign to me. And
yeah.
so I would just secretly memorize bass lines. And I also had no feel because I did the Suzuki method for cello growing up. I don't know if they have that where you were, but I don't know.
It
It was just a set
it
of books.
Yeah, it was like when I was learning, which was in kind of like in the 80s.
Hmm.
It was not, it was just such a strict, kind of framework and syllabus. It was
Yeah.
very, very rigid.
I really wish someone had been like, "What music do you wanna learn?" But with
Yeah.
Suzuki, I mean, there
Yeah.
were eventually I
Yeah.
got to some great pieces, but, like, you're
Mm.
not picking any of it. What was I gonna say? Oh, right, so I also feel like I had no rhythmic feel, like, I was always
Mm.
practicing to a metronome, and so
Yes.
with these
Yes.
bass lines with the samba, in my head, I would be like, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, like, for the entire piece.
Yeah.
I couldn't just, like, feel it. Um, and so then, yeah, years later, I took up a cello lesson again as an adult, and I burst into tears during the first lesson because I had all
Yeah.
these, like, crazy emotions, and I'm actually, today gonna take my cello to get repaired because, I wanna just play with it more, like, on home recordings. I'm good at pizzicato, I don't
Yeah.
have the best bowing sound, and I'm like, "You know what? I'm
Mm.
just gonna mess with it for fun and, like,
Yeah.
in my own, like, noisy way," but I left the strings loose for too long and the bridge fell off.
Oh, okay.
And
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and, like, if I put it on myself, it's gonna be, like, off, so,
Oh, yeah. That's pretty daunting when that
yeah.
happens. And it's like, try to get this back together again.
Yeah, the other thing with cello is just, like, tuning it. I was always terrified of the
Oh,
string, like,
yeah.
snapping off and, like,
Snapping.
hitting me in the eye or something.
When you turn in the
Um,
keys up at the top and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, it's like creaking. You think, okay, this is gonna go.
I know, like, okay, cello's great, but there's also a lot of stress involved.
Oh my! I mean, a lot of that sort of sounds similar to me. I mean, I didn't switch to the double bass, the upright bass, which would have been amazing because I think what you mentioned about improvisation, that was one thing. That's one thing now that I want to do, and I'm fine because I bought sort of quickly. I basically didn't touch one from the age of 16 or 17 until just before lockdown, so probably early 2020. And I did a similar thing to what you said with that emotion. I went into a record store in Soho in London. It was a Yamaha store, and I just said to the guy, I just said, "Look," I just explained that, and he said, "Oh, sure, just go to that room. There's several on the wall. Just take one and just practice, play away for however long you want," which I did. And as soon as I got hold of that neck, like all this emotion came back. It was like I was like, "Oh gosh, I didn't expect that." And it was just all that kind of memory of childhood of what I'd been holding. And
Yeah,
anyway, so I practiced, and there was very rusty, but the basics were still there. Anyway, I bought myself one, and one thing that I really wanted to do was learn how to train my mind to be more improvisational, which is really hard when you're coming from the last thing that I remember is this really rigid framework of
yeah.
learning. I've got to almost like unlearn that now. That's what I'm finding.
Mm. Are you
But
making
it's
progress?
I'm making some progress. I mean, I've started to buy some pedals as well, to sort of
Cool.
electrify it up and stuff like that. So, but it's yeah, it's hard, and also what I find with the thing as well is like you know I'm worried about making mistakes with it, even to myself when it's just me in the room. Like worry about making mistakes on it, or it's like, well, that doesn't sound that great, and so I need to kind of get over that. I suppose it's a self belief thing at the end of it.
Yeah, turning off the inner critic. Just
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. I didn't stick with upright bass either, like, we rented
Mm,
that, and so, like,
mm,
that also went away. But then, I taught myself guitar and took a few lessons here or there and was, like,
mm.
only, like, what I wanna play, you know?
Yeah.
Do you play other instruments?
I play a bit of drums. I
Oh,
play a little bit of
cool.
drums. I used to sing a lot as well and I haven't done that for years as well. That was something else that I just sort of gave up. And I wish I carried on with that. I do have a few regrets on the music side of my life going back. I try not to have regrets, but that it was, it's difficult with circumstances, and how
Yeah.
I came into it. Just my whole relationship with it, with music, was uh tricky
Yeah.
in lots of ways.
To I really relate to that, and today I've been of 2 minds, but one thing I've been trying to do lately, instead of, like, trying to learn to be a different way, I'm trying to embrace more my idiosyncrasies, so I
Mm,
just feel like I'm not gonna learn to play in certain ways that
yeah.
or get to certain levels of certain instruments that I wish I was great at. But
Mm,
I really am good at like trial and error and experimentation. And like, for
brilliant.
example, and like, I wish I could play piano fluently. Like I also studied piano a little, but it's a struggle, you know.
Mm,
I'm trying to learn Goodbye Yellow Brick Road by Elton John right now off a
yeah.
YouTube video, which has
Yeah.
been really fun. It's ever since I saw a sixth grader accompany the singers at my son's school, and I was like, if that sixth grader can do it, surely I can. But in general, like I will often write in MIDI in like dots in the computer. So like
Mm,
the the Moog solo on the song on my album Bubble of Love,
mm.
um, I basically like wrote it like nudging little dots around with the computer cursor and
Right,
then would like
okay.
play it back through the Moog Mother 32 and then be like, that note needs to move a little. Whereas like someone who's great at keyboards would just like be
Yes.
playing it. But so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just like, all right, I'm going to embrace that and like do experiments in MIDI or like a lot of all the harmonies on that album came about because normally in the studio people who are really good at harmonies will just like kind of break them out and like that's
Yeah,
it, and I am
yeah.
not fast like that. Like I
Mm,
can't just like wing it. But at home alone recording the vocals for this, which was the first time I did that, I literally test like every note. I'd just be like ah, and
mm,
like some of it's
mm,
terrible, but it's like fun. And maybe if I do that enough, I'll gain some fluency in harmonies. But I actually
mm.
enjoy just trial and error, and that's what I do.
Yeah,
And just accept that I'm not like one of those pro harmony singers.
yeah. I mean, I love playing around with harmonies. That's one thing that I have been doing is, kind of listening to some, kind of songs that I like that have, that kind of good, that are written for harmonies, and I've kind of played along to them. And what I started doing, I fell into that kind of trap of like doing it sort of note by note and then writing them down. And eventually I got, what are you doing? What are you doing? Just sort of stop this. This is you're being too sort of prescriptive. And you mentioned something earlier about feeling the music, and for kind of feeling it in your, in your heart, rather
Or
than,
not feeling it.
or not feeling it. Yeah, which was something that I had when I was at school. And I remember that I was with my in a class with the music teacher, and the music teacher, he was playing piano, and he was a brute. He was really a brute, and he asked me to come up and turn the page for him. And I've never been so scared in my life, because I wasn't feeling. I didn't feel it. I was trying to work out where he was on the page, to work out where I should kind of turn, and it was just
Yeah.
awful. But what I so when I was started writing these sort of notes and said stop, I just said to myself, just play it from your heart, see what it looks like. That's quite a big deal for me. And I did, and it was just great. It was so kind of freeing. But
Yeah,
knowing
it's
that
amazing.
I'd play it one time and it would sound like this, and then play it the next time, and it would maybe sound a little bit different because I've tried something else with a particular, kind of chord sequence or whatever. Just really interesting, just playing around. So
Yeah.
that's the sort of thing that I'm really interested in doing, in sort of changing I guess, the flexibility of my mind.
That sounds great. I relate to what you were doing before, and yeah, I'm trying to move past that of like sometimes I'll spend more time like notating something and like copying it
Mm,
down than and it's like
mm,
that's kinda just busy work and not
Yeah.
actually, like, learning. Like, you learn by just singing it, like,
Yeah.
so and
Yeah.
then I find that when I write stuff down too much, it's like I don't have a good memory muscle for music because I
Mm.
tend towards that, and if you're actually just singing it more and doing it, you don't need to, like, write everything down because it's just, like,
Yeah.
kind of in you, and you have, like yeah, your body remembers.
Yeah. Now with the record and the lyrics, because if again, if I'm not mistaken, you kind of always start with lyrics. That's your kind of
Mostly,
starting
yeah.
mostly.
I find
Yeah.
it really difficult to go the other way. I
To
would
go the
say,
other way.
though, usually the lyrics come with a melody,
Right.
or the first line comes with a melody.
Mm. And the sort of things that you've been writing about, the this kind of, theme of, I guess, of, if you want to just use one word, life, kind of like sort of navigating through life. I mean, what what were the kind of main things that you were that sort of came to you? And was it almost like a, did you take those that instinctively came to you?
Yes, I don't really sit down to say, I'm going to write a song about this subject matter.
Mm,
It's
mm,
more like I'm thinking about something and finding it interesting. I also have this note file, like, iPhone or
mm.
notes
On the
that
nose, yeah, yeah.
I have one where anytime I think of a phrase or an interesting line that could be part of a lyric, I just
Mm,
add it. I also write the date I thought of it because I don't know why I'm like, maybe I'll want to know that someday. So I
yeah.
have this just like super long list that's like most recent to oldest. So sometimes and it's usually like I'm driving or like grocery shopping or in the shower and I get out and like write something down.
Mm,
Then if I don't have a song in progress, for example, beach vacation, I just scoured the notes and I'll
mm,
like bold anything that I'm like, that's pretty good. So with beach vacation, I was scouring my notes file
mm,
and came upon what became something like the first line of the song. It was like, all right, I'm gonna pick that idea, which was like remembering, obviously, it was from a year earlier. I guess a
mm.
year earlier, I had this memory of being at the beach as a child and having this certainty that someday I would end my life by walking into the ocean. And I
Right,
was like,
yeah.
well, obviously, that's how I'm gonna die as a child, thinking that, and then taking that. And yeah, so the notes thing is kind of where all of my little seeds are
Mm.
stored.
That's interesting. It because I mean that really kind of explains the detail of the sort of the observations that you have in the record as well. What makes it so kind of powerful. I wish I had the discipline to do that. It's like loads of stuff that you kind of see around day to day, and
Yeah.
then as you sort of get older, you forget things more, and and all that. And, kind of. One thing that I've really struggled with kind of working out as I've got older is my memory getting worse, or is it just the volume of information now that we have to kind of process? Because it feels just so vast.
Uh, I'm sure there is an answer to this that people have talked about. I definitely feel like my memory is a lot worse, but I kind of wonder if it's because we don't have to use our memories as much. Like when we were
True.
younger, we both like
Yeah.
knew everybody's phone numbers by heart
Yeah.
and we
That's
have all
true.
these tools, and so we're not exercising it because they're in that book I read, Peak, about deliberate practice. There's I think it's that book that spends a lot of time on memory champions because there's
Mm,
like worldwide memory championships where people yeah, study this and like
wow.
it takes practice, but
Mm,
we don't do it so much anymore. So I like to think it might be more of that and less like decaying through age and more just like because we're not working on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell myself. You're doing enough to keep your memory muscle going. I'm doing fine.
I played one of those memory games with my son recently where there's
Right.
like pairs that you match on upside
Yeah.
down cards. I was so bad at it. I felt
Oh, really?
I was
Yeah.
disturbed by it.
You see, yeah, that's the sort of thing that kind of that frightens me. The thought of doing that. I think generally men seem to be worse at kind of going to the doctors when something's wrong with them. There's a sort of fear of the outcome, and that sort of thing. Yeah, 'cause yeah, it's almost like the result is going to be bad, and it's gonna yeah, and I don't want to know it. I'd rather just sort of live in ignorant bliss.
Yeah, maybe
But
I
as
should
it turns out,
practice
it's
that game.
yeah, yeah, I probably do need to. Well, one thing I'm interested in with um, having a young son is clearly what you like when we're kids, we I feel that we have so much imagination, kind of playing with other kids, playing on our own, and it's like, there's just this sort of like open world, and we just use our imagination, and that kind of gets to an extent sort of kicked out of us when we sort of enter the system. That it becomes very sort of rigid. I mean, how have you do you find that, and if you do, how have you sort of managed that with the family?
I worry about that with my son in school now, and
Mm,
he's in a public school, and they just have so much homework at such a young age, and I just see him like already. He seems like an angsty teenager to me,
mm,
and he's,
mm,
younger than that. And
yeah,
um, yeah, it kind of bums me out that we don't live in like, I don't know, where is it, Sweden or Switzerland, where they like don't start reading till they're like
yeah,
7 or something, and they do a
yeah,
lot of play. But he's still so creative and playful
mm,
outside of school. And I know the teachers are great and like do their best. There's like the required curriculum that has to get done. And
yeah,
hopefully it's all like, okay, so he'll be able to spell and do math, hopefully. But
yeah,
my song on the album Little Mr. Civility addresses this in a way, my feelings more at a younger age of when he was, I think, on the cusp of language and
mm,
having to teach him about cultural norms and stuff. I felt very
yeah,
weird about it. Like, I remember having this fear when I was telling him he had to say please, that it reminded me of people teaching a dog an arbitrary trick. Um,
mm, mm,
Now that he's older, I'm like, you better say please, because he's old enough to kind of understand and not take these things for granted. And we can like
yeah,
talk about them as like, yes, this is what is considered polite.
yeah,
But yeah, just when he was so open, as a toddler, and anything's possible. And he's that song, there's a line about private property, and saying please. And the property thing was, we were at the playground, and I would feel this rage towards parents who would leave a little toy out, like visible next to their bag, but it's not for
yeah.
everybody to
It's
play
not for
with.
everybody. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
he'd walk over and I'd be like, "Sorry, like, that's not ours," and, like, introducing him to this concept of, like, things
Of
belonging to
ownership.
people. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I felt
I get
really
you.
guilty and sad for him, and, of course, now he's, like, learned that, and actually, now that he's learned it, he's not, like, upset if he sees it, because he's just, like, accepts, "Oh, yeah, that's somebody else's,"
Mm.
unless it's a thing he's jealous of, and then he wants it too. Yeah, there's
Well,
minefields everywhere.
this is an interesting one because I mean this thing of sort of ownership. I mean, what when you're a kid. So when I was a kid, I think I must have been about 7 or 8, and there was we used to you know my friends and me, we used to go out playing football on the like on the back field, back sort of school field, and So my mum calls me, it's time to come in, you need to come and eat, all this sort of stuff. So it was my ball, and I took my ball in. I
Ah,
said I have to, and one of my friends really didn't like that. He
yeah.
really didn't like that. So he almost before I got hopped over the fence and got inside, he had run round to his mum who lived sort of almost opposite us. Um, Told his mum that I told him to fuck off, and then his mum then went to my dad, told him what had happened. My dad called me upstairs and said, my mum said, "Oh, your dad needs to see you." So he told me this, and I said, I didn't say anything like that. My dad believed my friend. I was grounded for a week.
Wow.
Do you know?
That's an
And the fact
intense
that,
memory.
like, I was like 50 years later, I can still remember this
Yeah.
all over, like, this possession of this toy.
Did you reconcile with that friend?
Eventually, but I wasn't happy with him for a while after
Yeah,
that.
that's pretty messed up to, like, make a lie about it.
Yes, I know.
I mean,
I
he
was
could
just,
I mean, yeah, gosh, communicate like, he could just be like, "Mom," like, he wouldn't share his soccer ball.
yeah, I know, but this whole kind
Sorry,
of like lie
football,
that
football
no,
ball.
this whole kind of lie that sort of went on, but yeah. I
Wow.
mean, talking about. I mean, have you found that yourself with your imagination? I mean, do you, would you say that you still got quite a sort of fertile imagination?
Imagination, yeah,
Mm,
I would say so. Although, it's like when I want it, like, it's going all the time, but if
mm.
I'm like, "Ooh, let's come up with something," then it's like that, you know?
Yeah, when the pressure's on, that's
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
it's like, okay, where are you?
Yeah, like, especially now I'm trying to gather a batch of songs for the new album.
Mm,
I just find myself listening to music and thinking like, "Ah, how did how did they come up with this?"
yeah.
And, we're actually watching the new Billy Joel documentary. Have you seen
Mm.
it?
I haven't, no, no.
It's amazing. I don't know if you like him at all. My first CD ever was Billy Joel. I
Oh,
love Billy
really?
Joel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got a
Um,
special kind of relationship with him then,
yeah.
yeah.
But, there was this one song, oh, am I gonna remember it? Where I never, like, it just sounded like some line someone would come up with, and then there was actually a literal s it was just a complete literal retelling of something that happened, and it wasn't just some line that sounded good. I gotta remember it. Um, I'll come back to it if I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really have a hard time writing anything that's not from life.
Mm,
So,
mm,
and I would like to get better at that. I've done it before, taking like a book or a TV show
mm,
episode, and maybe I can just stick with that, like, especially something, like on my last album, I had a song that was just the plot for the pilot episode to Seinfeld.
okay.
Um, but you wouldn't know that because it's like this
Mm,
totally earnest love song.
yeah,
And so I just need like something, nothing comes out of nothing. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, I would like to sort of gather, like, have a more diverse subject matter,
Subject matter,
maybe,
okay, yeah.
or just I need to, it's hard when you are eager to come up with a bunch all at once. And so I've been listening to a lot of music, reading a lot, just trying to like be in
Mm,
the consuming
yeah.
mindset. But then also I try to do a little bit of free writing um in the morning, and if I have a song in progress that's stuck, I try to do some free writing on it, just like
Mm.
not not be like, "Oh, I have to come up with the next line," but just like brainstorm, and then maybe a little nugget comes out that like goes with that song.
I did, it was actually during lockdown. With a small group of us had formed, like a, kind of arts group. Um during all the lockdowns, we would hold these sort of online workshops, which at the time felt quite radical at the time because nobody was doing it. It was like, oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to communicate with each other to these online
Yeah.
things? And it was one of them was a writing class, a stream of consciousness writing
Oh,
class, which was really interesting. So it was done. So we had Laura O'Dell, who was in the band Psychic TV, married to Genesis P. Orridge for about 10 years
okay.
or so. And now she does writing, and she holds sort of classes for, and this stream of consciousness class that she does outside of this workshop was for kind of like specifically for women who had perhaps been abused and wanted to release trauma. So we did this sort of workshop, and it was really interesting talking about that. It just reminded me when you were talking about writing from a different perspective, maybe not as much on, but it was so different when I did it. It was so different. Just you basically just kind of given a couple of pointers and then just write. Doesn't matter what comes out, just write. Don't stop writing. Just kind of keep going. It's kind of quite scary, actually.
Yeah.
But
Did you
it
like
made
it?
me. I did. I loved it so much. I've never done it again since. No, I wish I had done. I wish I had the. I don't know. I did enjoy it. It was quite illuminating. Um, but it made me think when you just sort of talking then about how you train your mind to use different kind of muscles to create this, which is something that I'd never sort of done before. But you do. I think you're right. You do need to kind of coach yourself and practice, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely for this album, this is why I feel more confident going into the next album. I read a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, which I highly recommend. It's all about
Mm,
doing deep work as opposed to
okay,
busy work.
make a
And
note of them.
that it was during that book that I started working on the last track on the album Beach Vacation. And um from ideas gleaned from that book, I started working on lyrics for 1 hour first thing in the morning every day. And also, part of that came from therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure
Mm,
response prevention, where I would basically, if you haven't sat down at the blank page in a while, there's this hump of anxiety you have to push through. And my therapist
mm,
said, if you sit there and keep trying for 50 minutes, like 50, that that's like around the maximum or the normal time it'll take where you can then finally get into the flow. And
mm,
I
mm,
think you're sort of exposing yourself to that anxiety of your inner critic, and then you're preventing yourself from just like checking Facebook or doing something else. You're sticking with
mm,
it. And
yeah.
the more, if you make that into a routine every morning, that initial anxiety is going to start going away. And then it's just like,
Mm,
oh, of course I'm sitting down to write. And so I did that for Beach Vacation. And like some days I got nothing. Like I would just type or sit there and stare, but I just would keep showing up. And I think my therapist suggested one time, like, okay, if you can't think of anything, like take a random letter like B and just make a list of any word you can think of that starts with B that sort of feels relevant to the song. Just
mm,
anything, to get things flowing. And if I just had one little line from the whole hour, that was great. Or other times I'd be like, well, I ruled out some stuff. Like I'm definitely not
yeah,
going to use those lines. And that somehow felt
yeah.
productive. And after doing that for like 2.5 or 3 months, I like solved the song. It's like a puzzle to like
Wow.
complete the last line. And I feel like I spent more hours on that song than songs for my previous album, yet the timeline was shorter. Like
Mm, mm,
start to finish 2.5 months, as opposed to like a song languishing for like a couple years and then revisiting it and then not. There's
mm,
other songs, especially ones about grief, where it's like something happens and I like have to get it out and it's like a matter of days.
Yeah.
But more often than not, that'll happen, but there's like 3 lines missing, and then
Right.
that could take like forever unless I like keep showing up every morning to solve it.
So this is interesting. So how did you so before you adopted this method, if you were writing and nothing was happening, or what you were writing wasn't what you were looking for, what was your reaction to that? And how did you kind of
I think I just didn't
manage that?
finish songs. I think that's why there's like 8 years between every album. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
song like, I'd wait for inspiration to strike, and even before I think the deep workbook was part of, like, a general, like, honing in on this idea of, like, treating it a little more like a job that you show up to every
Mm,
day and less,
yeah,
like, waiting for the muse to strike. Um,
yeah, yeah.
because, I mean, that works too, but just takes a lot longer, and
Mm,
if you it's that could be like a muscle too, where maybe it stuff gets, like, jogged loose faster if you're, like, showing up more often than just waiting for some
yeah.
weird, like, moment, like, with Before the Future, I finished that song, I think even before Beach Vacation, I think I was pretty methodical about working on it over and over, but didn't have that, like, early morning hour figured out yet before
Mm,
your brain is tired. I guess all the seeds I find it harder to, like, sit down and be like, "Alright, let's come up with an idea," but I
mm,
now have this super long note file of seeds of
yeah,
ideas, so
yeah.
I can always look through those, and I guess that's sort of coming up with those seeds is like a separate thing.
And I wonder also, well, with when you kind of like adopt like a mindset that's more kind of focused on experimentation. When you can do that, you're sort of less tied to outcomes. So it's okay. Well, I'm not expected to get, because when you set an expectation, then you're either going to achieve it or you're going to be let down. If you can do that, then that's got to be a good thing. Because then you can play around with it. With what you're doing, I guess.
Definitely. Actually, I should keep that in mind as I said about working for the next album and like not thinking everything has to be for that because I
Mm,
want it to be like freer. I actually in one of my many self-help books, I read about a study where half the people it was about writing quality. Half the people were told to just write without thinking about anything at first, and the other half were told to imagine, like, where is this thing going to be published? What kind of accolades
mm,
could you get from it? And then
yeah.
write. And then they had this panel of writing professors and critics judge the work.
Mm,
And I think it was judged against each other, but also against their previous work. And
right.
if you thought about the outcome, the writing was worse, which is really interesting to
Yeah.
me.
It's interesting, isn't it? Well, actually,
Even just fantasizing about like, oh,
yeah.
maybe this will happen.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, you mentioned earlier about, because kind of societal or cultural norms, and sort of what's acceptable. And I guess I feel like we've lived with, in a world where that has almost been, I don't know if obsessed is the right word, but with perfectionism, and things being kind of completely sort of perfect, and sort of matching people's, expectations. And if those expectations veer towards perfectionism, that's what we have to deliver. And it's so I mean, so okay, so some jobs, when you're a surgeon, you have to be perfect, right? So that's kind of accepted. But in other walks of life, we don't need to be. I think we put ourselves under so much undue, unnecessary pressure to be perfect, or to create something that's. And this is what I struggle with for a large part of my life, is pleasing other people. Doing
Mm,
things that, okay, I think they'll like that. So doing it for myself. Crazy.
yeah, I think perfectionism is often um, detrimental to what you're doing, and a lot of procrastinators, which I have been like a lifelong procrastinator in the
Mm,
past. It's
mm.
actually people who procrastinate are not lazy. They're usually perfectionists who are afraid because it's like better put it off because the inner critic is so strong
So strong.
that it makes you not want to do the work because you're so scared of not making it good enough.
Yeah. Does that impact you in some decision making? Some what am I trying to say? Does it impact your willingness to take risks?
I don't think I worry about I'm so obscure. Nobody's like expecting
Oh,
me to make some polished record, you know? Like I if I have an idea for something, I'll try it. I'm not like, "Ooh, what are the people gonna say?" Like I'm not under so much
oh.
scrutiny.
Well, but I think whatever there is a there's a kind of, I don't know, we build up expectations, don't we, of what we expectation of what we expect to hear from somebody, whether that's a, like you as a musician, or you as a parent, or me as a podcast. There are expectations that you, I guess, sometimes create in your own mind. Some
Yeah. I feel like I can be scared of that, not in making my own music, but I think I'm not really a leader. Like when I get roped
mm,
into organizations or something, like on some
mm,
committee, I just want to like help get the thing done, but I
yeah,
don't want to be like the one dragging everybody into my idea. Like
yes, yes, yes.
that really scares me.
Yeah,
And I find that with parenting too, like if my husband's like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, I'll go along with that." I'm like, "No, no, but do you agree?" Like, if
yeah,
it's some like major I'm like, I don't want it to just be like my idea.
yes.
I'm
So,
afraid of
so,
the responsibility, I think.
so are you somebody that tries to sort of build consensus?
I don't know. No, honestly, I
No.
don't know if I would love to be that person. I think my dad
Mm.
was really good at that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I am pretty stubborn, but I'm not the best at working in groups. I feel
Mm.
like what we were talking about before with that intellectual upbringing, there was also a lot of focus on individualism,
Yeah.
and
True.
I want to be better about collaborating. And I mean, this album has lots of collaboration, and I've
Yeah.
gotten more comfortable with that.
Mm.
Partly from just meeting great musicians who I trust.
Yeah.
Um, but I think my role is more conveying information. I'm good at um, clarifying and
Mm.
providing data
Yeah.
for people in like other stuff that I do.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna like um, convince. I'm not like a politician. Like I'm not
Yes. Yeah.
bringing people around, but I'm like,
Yeah.
here are the facts.
Yeah. Here are our stakeholders, and this is what I need to do to get them on side and all that stuff. Yeah.
Like,
How do you? Yeah. Go on. I go.
oh, I was gonna say, like, so, my son just started a school year with a new teacher, and,
Mm.
like, we have this event Friday night where, like, they need parent volunteers. I signed up for the cleanup because I don't wanna be, like, the front-facing, like, ice cream scooper person, and
Yeah.
then the teacher reached out with, like, "Who wants to take home these workbooks, rip out all the pages, and collate them differently?" Um, and I was like, "Yes, finally a volunteer position that suits me where it's, like, tedious and repetitive, and I know I'll do it well because 'cause I'll triple check everything, but I
Yeah.
don't have to be, like, front facing, like,
Got
schmoozing
you.
with and, like, handling other people's children."
Yeah. No, I hear you with that. Yeah. How do you how do you feel looking back at your past catalog?
Um, my first album, I find difficult to listen to because of my singing.
Mm,
I remember being so scared in the studio the first time I had to listen back to my naked vocals in front of other people, and I'm
mm,
not like a singer, like, I don't sit around singing my
mm.
songs ever. So now that I'm this album doing the vocals at home for the first time, the takes are the rehearsal where I do like 80 takes,
Got
but
you.
I'm like never singing it otherwise.
Yeah.
So and I was mortified recently to find out my husband thought that that was an affect on the first album, that I was
Right.
like trying to sound really flat and like um like no, I would never like
No, that was me.
intentionally um so yeah, that uh I don't know though, I stand by like the song construction, and I find like the instrumentation on that album fun.
Mm,
And
mm,
it's funny, I don't like listen to them really, but I have different friends or people I know who are really attached to some of the earlier albums, like people who just like the first album. And the
mm, mm.
second album definitely has a lot of um uh devotees within my
Yeah,
circle. And then
yeah,
there's like
yeah.
certain songs on the third album. But yeah, I don't know.
I guess
I don't know what I think about it.
it's hard, isn't it? I mean, I always sort of think that it's it sort of represents you at that moment in time. When you wrote it and produced it, and sorry, and released it. That
Yeah.
was that was who you are.
I mean,
Um,
the first album, a lot of it was written in high school, like on a
mm,
4-track, and I had 4-track demos of most of those. And so some of those songs are replicating the 4-track
yeah,
sounds, but then there's
yeah,
like a real drummer. So yeah, it is funny, like to think about some of those feelings from back then that
yeah.
feel a bit far away now, but sometimes not.
This is the thing about time, isn't it? Kind of sometimes they feel very close. Almost like what I was saying earlier about that. That story with the football. I mean, I can just sort of picture it now. I can picture the scene. But other stuff is just sort of faded into this sort of fog.
Yeah. I have
It's
a
weird.
terrible memory for my childhood. Like a lot of it is missing kind of. Like I have
Mm,
friends who just are like, "No, no, you had that teacher for 4th grade." And,
mm,
they remember everything. But I guess anything that was important enough to turn into a song, those feelings I remember. And when I said before, like I stand by the song construction and melodies like it's not like, oh, stand by and like it's great. It's more like I kind of have a similar sensibility, like it's still me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think more recently I'm willing to like develop things
Mm,
further, whereas there's
mm,
more like 2-minute songs on the early
yeah. On
stuff.
the earlier
Um,
stuff, yeah, yeah. But that's your own evolution, isn't it? And as you said, earlier, or just a few minutes ago, about willingness to collaborate more, and sort of taking that, those sort of steps, getting out of your comfort zone, perhaps, and whether it's a bit of the control, whether it's who you're going to bring in to collaborate, and because that's can always be tricky. Um, but that's your evolution.
yeah, I think I'm at a good place in LA now. It took me a while to meet people,
Mm, mm,
um, and sort of find my place in the music world
yeah,
here.
yeah,
And but yeah, I think I've especially on this album, there's a few more songs where I left it very open before going in the studio, like
mm,
Beach Vacation, Little Mr. Civility. I wrote them on bass notes only.
mm,
So, you know, bringing people in, like I didn't know what the groove was going to be or
yeah,
how it was going to fill out. So it was fun to work with
yeah.
friends and friends of friends. Like, what are we going to play?
I bet that sounds immense. It really does. I just love the sound of that. Anyway, Rebecca, thank you so much. It's been a fascinating chat. Thanks so much for giving up the time. It's been brilliant.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great